Hey, I recently moved. And if you've done that, you know how fun it is and how exhausting it is. I also have a lot of things I want to do in my coaching business to grow it and help my clients more and implement some new things. There's a lot I needed to get done this week. And yet, at the same time, if you could see behind me right now, there is a room chock full of boxes calling my name to get unpacked. To say I was lacking motivation to work would be an understatement. Motivation just wasn't on the table this week at all. But what I realized that I have that's even better than motivation, that helps me at times when I'm motivated, that helps me when things are just crazy and my schedule is super jam-packed, is what I want to talk to you about today. Because if you are waiting for motivation to come before you take action, before you have the hard conversation with your manager, before you update your resume and start looking for a new job, before you start setting boundaries and stop working at nights and weekends, I got some bad news for you. It's not going to come. Motivation does come in moments and glimpses, but if you are waiting for that, you are going to be playing the long waiting game. Saying I'm waiting to feel motivated to do something is just an excuse we believe. And we've given into so often that we continue to believe it. We continue to think that's going to be too hard without motivation. So I'm just going to wait until the winds of motivation come through and then I'm all in. But that keeps you waiting. So motivation is not coming to save you, but this is actually good news, because what I want to share with you today, it's way more reliable and 100% in your control. By the end, I want to walk you through my framework that works on the best of days and on the worst of days. Okay? This might also be impacting you if it's not necessarily motivation that you're waiting for, but you're waiting for when something changes to get better. I see this come about a lot with my clients, in those that struggle a lot with the Sunday scaries. They just start dreading the work week. They're waiting for that project to be done. They're waiting for that manager to rotate. They're waiting for a reorg. They're waiting for something. They're telling themselves, once this thing happens, then it's going to be better. Yet at the same time, many of us that operate from that place, we're the ones that are burned out, because there's always something else right behind that thing we want changed. And then it starts to lead to a lack of confidence. And we do get behind because we're so burned out. We're so worried. We're so anxious. We're not actually focused and doing our job as quickly and as efficiently as we can, because we're also not resting and taking a break from work. So when we show up to work, we're just exhausted. It's this terrible cycle. So if you find yourself checking emails at night, if you find yourself working through lunch, if you find yourself snapping at your friends and family at the end of the day because you're exhausted, we need to have this conversation, okay? It's not going to get easier. Motivation isn't going to solve it. Waiting for that thing to happen or change isn't going to solve it. If it had, you wouldn't be where you're at today. So, why is motivation so overhyped? And I think we sometimes use it in a harmful way. We treat motivation like it's this miracle drug, like it's the Ozempic of our productivity, okay? You think of now I'm not a doctor, I'm not giving you medical advice, I'm not an expert in this, but in my head, the way I think of these weight loss medications is they're a temporary help and boost to get some results to help get you where you want to be, but they don't address the root cause of the issue. Now, I'm not saying you should or shouldn't be taking weight loss medication. Again, I'm not an expert in that. But if you take weight loss medication, hit some of your health goals, and then go off it, and you haven't changed any of your lifestyle, you're going to go right back where you were. It's not solving the root cause of the problem. I think of motivation exactly the same. Motivation comes, and when it's there, it's amazing and things are easier and we're productive and we get things done and we can have more fun and it feels more light and freeing. But when motivation's gone, if you haven't changed your lifestyle habits, You're going to go right back to where you were. So waiting for motivation until you're going to do the thing or not do the thing, I think creates this really not helpful all or nothing cycle. Because again, when we have motivation, we go hard and we get so much done. But if you're anything like me, when I'm super motivated, I get like hyper fixated on things and I go too hard. And then the motivation disappears and I come crashing down into like, I just got to walk away. I can't even spend another minute on this thing. So if you're relying on motivation too much, it may be feeding into these all or nothing cycles all of us struggle with in various capacities. And then we find ourselves waiting for the motivation to come again before we pick it back up and keep moving forward. So the real problem is motivation doesn't solve the root cause of the issue. The root cause isn't a lack of inspiration. The root cause is not having systems and habits that work regardless of how you're feeling. So the mental framework I try to work from, especially in those moments when I'm not motivated, but also in those moments when I am motivated, so I don't go too hard, is focusing on small, consistent action. Focusing on creating habits that create that healthy boundary, that healthy lifestyle, those healthy habits I want to sustain my productivity long term. So not only just focusing on tiny consistent habits help me not go all or nothing, it also helps me build some momentum because it gives me small wins along the way. Something in motion stays in motion. The hardest part about most of the things we need to do, whether it's unpack a house or have a hard conversation with our manager, is starting. That truly is the most challenging part, is just being willing to take the first step. So when we have these small, consistent, healthy action habits, it builds that momentum. It gives us hits of dopamine. Habits don't require willpower. They're automatic. No motivation required. So having these tiny, consistent actions is what will address the real problem. It creates a system that works for years, not just moments. If you really want to go in on habits, I love James Clear book, Atomic Habits. He gives some great insight there. These are kind of the 3 parts I focused on and I use as my ongoing habit building system. So the first one is you want to identify what's the smallest micro version step to get to that habit. Okay, and I'm going to give you some examples of this here in a minute. But you want to start, you're not going to go from not exercising ever to exercising 7 days a week. That's too big of a leap. You'll go hard. That's all or nothing mentality. You're not going to go from working every night and weekend to never working nights and weekends. We got to have small steps to build consistent habits that give us some hits of dopamine that get us to where we want to go, but it has to be in a sustainable way. Trying to go from always working at night to never working at night, that is where we need motivation. We need some bigger factors outside of us to make big changes. But again, it's not sustainable. It doesn't last long term. When motivation goes away, we fall back into our old habits if it's not sustainable. So step number 1 is identify the micro step towards the goal you want to reach, towards the habit you want to have. Second thing is to attach it to an existing habit. James Clear calls this habit stacking. So maybe you want to work on having a healthier relationship with yourself and liking yourself more and feeling more confident about who you are. It might be every time you wash your hands, you're going to look yourself in the eye and tell yourself one thing you like about yourself, right? You wash your hands dozens of times a day. That's a habit you already have. We're going to stack another habit on top of it. Maybe you're super stressed at work and you want to try to feel more calm and more confident and less rushed. Maybe every time you start a meeting, you're just going to take a deep breath in and out and relax your shoulders, right? That's habit stacking, okay? So the first part is you got to identify a micro step you're going to take towards that goal. The second is you want to attach it to an existing habit. And the third part is you want to focus on consistency, not the outcome. So you want to be proud of yourself for showing up consistently and doing it consistently. We're not going to obsess over getting a particular outcome. The more you like you, the more you're proud of you, the more dopamine hits you're getting because you're showing up and you're doing it and you're making it easy and you're taking steps forward, the easier it is to keep moving forward. I had a client that was really struggling with just some unhealthy boundaries at work. More and more things were getting dumped on them, and they were being asked to do things that were just way out of scope with ridiculous timelines. So instead of waiting to feel brave and confident to go have this big workload chat with their manager, we identified what was a small step they could take. We attached it to something they were already doing, and we talked about how we were going to do it consistently. So they identified they meet with their manager every week. That's kind of a habit. They have a weekly one-on-one. Okay. What was one small step they could start taking? It was even just bringing a list of all of the projects, the expected time to complete, and the priority and due date. Just start bringing that to the one-on-ones and talking through it with their manager. And they started doing this. And as they did this, the conversation naturally progressed towards there's not enough capacity to do all these things. And they were able to have conversations about reprioritizing workload and reprioritizing expectations. And some of the asks, the scope decreased because the manager realized what all was on their plate, right? So to go and have this big conversation about I'm drowning, this is too much, I can't do this isn't sustainable, and being worried about the repercussions, instead we focused on one small action, attached it to something they were already doing, and showed up and did it consistently. Let me give you another example. Let's say you need to find a new job, but you're putting it off because it's not fun and the market's scary and now's not the time and you're not even sure how you would explain your skills and what you want to do. Okay. Thinking about it that way feels hard and big and overwhelming, and you're going to sit around and wait until you have this moment of inspiration and this moment of motivation before we do it. That moment may come, but it may not. My guess is you need a new job because you're tired and burned out. Motivation doesn't really show up much when that's the state that our nervous system is in. So instead of saying, I'm going to spend the weekend updating my resume, because how many weeks have you been telling yourself that? Maybe you're going to spend 15 minutes every Friday at noon, and you're just going to write down one accomplishment you've had in your career that year. That's it. We're not pulling out the resume. We're not updating all the things. We're just going to start documenting some of the things we've accomplished recently. We're not formatting it. It doesn't need to be perfect. But you know what? After doing that consistently for 2 months, you're going to have a pretty comprehensive list that's going to make it so much easier for you to update your resume. Take your resume, load it into an AI tool. Now we're making progress. Okay? You want to break this down into bite-sized habits and show up consistently. Let's take this podcast for example. If I waited for motivation to come to record and publish this every week, I would maybe have 1 or 2 podcasts a year. But what I do is I have a system where Monday I sit down and I identify what is a relevant topic I'm hearing from coaching calls, from working with clients, from people within this coaching space. What is a relevant topic that I could talk about that would help someone out there, help one of you? And I take 15 minutes and I hit record on my voice notes on my phone and I just start rambling. And then Tuesday, I take the transcript of that and I do some research and I spend another 15 minutes looking at some things online and I create an outline. And then Tuesday afternoon, I hit record. This is my habit. I do it every week, whether I want to or not. So this week, when it came to time to record my podcast, I had zero motivation to do it. It took me a minute to get my head there, but because I have this habit, my nervous system knew what to do, my brain knew what to do, I was able to still record and create this podcast. Not because I was motivated, but because I have habits that I show up for consistently. And here's the crazy thing. Sometimes I start recording this podcast and I get all these ideas and I'll record 2 or 3 at one time. because the ideas just start coming. Something in motion stays in motion. Creating habits set us up for success. You don't have to wait for motivation. I want you to think of what's the one thing you keep telling yourself, it'll get better when, or I'll do it when. And I want you to think of what's a micro action you can take, attach it to an existing habit if you already have some of those. And I want you to start showing up and doing it consistently. Now, when I say micro action, I mean micro. Notice with the resume example, I didn't say we're going to time block and put out when we're going to do our resume. No, we're just going to spend 5, 10, 15 minutes once a week writing down things we've accomplished in our career. That's it. Make it doable, make it easy, and then be proud of yourself for doing it. Be proud of yourself for showing up consistently for 3 weeks in a row, spending 15 minutes in your busy schedule that you don't have time for, that you're burned out on, trying to help figure out how to navigate your career. That is where you're going to start building that momentum. And let me tell you what happens. When momentum's here, motivation tends to come along as well. So if you want help with this is what I do in my coaching program. Every month we do a different challenge where we actually go and do things. We're not just going to talk about it, we do it. And I follow a similar thing here. I break it down into simple step-by-step actions, and then we help each other and we get some coaching, and it's amazing. This month, we are working on creating our personal brand. How do you explain what you're good at to other people? So if you are interested in switching teams or switching companies or looking for something new and you're not sure how to explain your skill set in a way that helps you stand out but is genuine, that's what we're doing. We're helping people get clear and confident on their personal brand at work. It's so much fun. Come join us if you want. You can try it out for free for 7 days. Get all the personal branding stuff. Hop out if you want. But go to lindsaylymancoaching.com/join. Come and participate with us. The personal branding stuff is only available through the end of the month. And then next month, we're starting a new challenge. So you're amazing. You got this. We'll talk soon.